going to get some shots off before he's even able, that's a tongue twister, even able to get up to the ramp there. So softening up a lot of those roaches right now. And 13 and I trying to mass our forces so that we can send back. 13 warping in a bunch more stalkers up on top of the ramp here, and it looks like he is going to be able, using that small choke, going to be able to hold off these roaches. And 13 and I bringing our armies over here to help clean this up now that we have the roaches of Faust trapped. So it looks like he is going to lose this entire army, and casualties for us at this point pretty minimal, because we've been able to completely separate Faust and Jokebook's attacks from one another. So at this point, it seems like 13 and I have been able to coordinate our attacks and defenses a little bit better than our opponents at this point. So we definitely got that going for us, and it looks like Jokebook is going to be sticking with a primarily Zealot army. As you can see here, he does have 11 Zealots warped in right now and warping in a 12th. He also has a couple of cannons here defending the ramp to get up into his base. As you can see, he has narrowed down the choke a little bit to get directly up into that ramp, and a couple more cannons up there top. And it looks like an attack from 13 and I going to be taking out the hatchery here, sniping that real quick. And it looks like Jokebook has come over with some Zealots trying to take down these stalkers. Of course, Zealots very strong against stalkers if the stalkers are not microed. And it looks like 13 is pulling back, trying to get away from this army. And all the Zealots at this point are dead. The only thing left to defend this is the roaches, which there is plenty of roaches and spine crawlers, I would think, to hold this attack off at this point. It looks like 13 and I are going, he is going to back off. I'm sorry, no, he's going up. So it looks like we're going to try to push into the Zerg player's base at this point, although 13 deciding that that may not be the best of ideas, although he is going to try to snipe the spawning pool here, but I don't think that's going to happen. There's a lot of roaches here to defend against that. And Jokebook now bringing over more Zealots right now, just constantly streaming in more and more Zealots to defend against this attack that 13 and I have pushed up. And there is a pretty sizable amount of units here between roaches and Zealots. I don't think that 13 and I have enough units to hold this off at this point, and it looks like the Zealots are going to clean up the stalkers of 13. And 13 sending a couple more Zealots down here to their doom. And trying to run away the last of my roaches. Of course, that Zealot charge ability going to allow them to catch up to most of the roaches. And I don't think that most of these roaches are going to make it back into my base, although it looks like Jokebook has decided to pull back his army, or at least temporarily slowed them down. So that is going to allow the remaining 4 roaches that I have back into my base. Although there is a sizable amount of Hydralis and roaches up on the high ground here, so if they do try to attack, they're going to be running a bit of a gauntlet if they come right by this cliff here. And it looks like 13 aware that I'm going to be getting attacked here shortly, so he is bringing over some help of his own and running directly into these Zealots. Unfortunately, 13 getting himself a bit out of position here, so it looks like he's going to take some pretty heavy hits from Jokebook, the blue Protoss player. Although coming out to help him out here with my roaches and Hydralis, although I'm going to have to back off to defend against the roaches and Zerglings of Faust here. And of course, I have a couple of spine crawlers here. I do like the positioning of this spine crawler up at the top ramp. It does have vision of that area, and as you can see, Faust cannot attack it because he does not have anything spotting that high ground right now. And able to focus fire down with the help of those spine crawlers. The roaches and Hydralis able to take down the rest of that Protoss army, and now just cleaning up the last few remaining roaches. So a lot of back and forth action going up early on here. I am now starting to mine pretty heavily at my main expansion. It looks like Jokebook has fully saturated the minerals and gas at his natural, and he is taking another expansion down at the I guess you would call this the tertiary expansion, which is right in between both players at the bottom of the map. So Jokebook opting to take that, and it looks like this high yield mineral expansion in the middle here may be left for Faust to take once he gets his natural up and running. And as you can see, his hatchery did just finish here, so he will be trying to frantically get some drones over there as he is nearly mining out his main at this point. So going to need the minerals from that base to kick in sooner than later, and I have actually thrown up a second expansion of my own up here at the expansion between 13 and I, although it looks like Faust does have an Overlord nearby, although I don't believe that the Overlord has not yet spotted that I am expanding up at this base as well. So as far as they know, I'm still only at 1 expansion. And at this point, trying to mass up a little bit of a Roach Hydra army here, since they are primarily sticking the ground. As you noticed, Jokebook had stuck primarily 2 Zealots up until now, although you can see that he is starting to warp in some Stalkers at this point. although roaches and hydras are still pretty strong against stalkers as well. So although it looks like he is researching the High Templar Psystorm ability, so we could be seeing a lot of Psystorm here, and a very healthy amount of gateways. He's got 6 right now, which is going to allow him to macro up an army pretty quickly. And it looks like 13 moving out here with a pretty strong Zealot Stalker army here, although an even larger army from Jokebook at this point moving out. It looks like they may clash here in the middle, and 13 going to try to take this army on, and Jokebook blinking up into the Stalker Zealot line. And as you can see, light blue versus blue when they are the same race is very difficult to tell apart. And at this point I come over and try to help 13 out, and it looks like most of the army for Jokebook is going to run away, and Faust getting into the fray here as well. So both main armies from all of the main armies from both teams are merging in the middle of the map here right now. Basically, it looks like they are falling back to the expansion of Faust at this point. And since all of their army is focused on this one base, we are going to move over to this expansion of Jokebook. As you can see, that he's only got a few Zealots and Stalkers here to defend this. And Jokebook immediately realizing that he does not have much over here, so he's going to have to pull his units from the base of Faust and try to come over and defend this so that we do not take out this expansion, which right now is pretty critical. And it looks like we're going to be able to take all the units out, although the reinforcements coming from Jokebook and Faust may be able to hold this off. It's a pretty close battle at this point, and of course, since we are right on the front doorstep of Jokebook, he is warping in more units constantly, and it looks like the roaches of Faust, with the help of the Stalkers from Jokebook, are going to be able to hold this off. And it looks like 13 and I will once again be repelled on the offensive here, and trying once again to salvage the last few of my units here. Although they are going to be very low in health by the time they get back to my base. Of course, trying to macro up more roaches continually so that we can constantly be keeping pressure on the map. And it looks like Faust and Jokebook are going to take a bit of a defensive stance at this point, trying to hold off any more damages from their expansions or army at this point. 13 still only running off 1 expansion, and of course I've got Overlord spotting both expansions in here in the middle to make sure that Jokebook and Faust do not get any expansions, although it looks like Faust is throwing down a hatchery at the high yield minerals in the middle of the map here, and at the same time moving out his roach army, checking to see if we have yet taken the high yield minerals on our side of the map. And of course nothing there yet, and only roaches coming from Faust at this point. So not a very diverse army. One thing that is definitely a good idea to do if you are a Zerg player is have a nice mix of Hydras and Roaches. Hydras do outrange Roaches slightly, so if you can keep some Hydras in the back behind your Roach line, you can have 2 layers of attack going with those ranged units. And of course the Roach is a little bit stronger as far as HP and armor goes, so they being able to